Today I will be comparing and contrasting the various different internal structures of the rat, earthworm, crayfish, squid, and perch. So let's say hypothetically I was about to dissect a rabbit. Out of those 5 animals I just listed, the rat would be the most useful for predicting the rabbit's internal structures. This is because they are more closely related to each other due to them both being in class Mammalia. Using the rat, I could predict that the rabbit's respiratory system would begin with the mouth and nose, where air would be inhaled and brought down to the larynx and trachea and into the lungs, where the air travels through a series of really small channels such as the bronchi, bronchioles, and finally into the alveoli, which then diffuse into converging capillaries where oxygen is delivered to the rest of the circulatory system. Carbon dioxide that is left over is then exhaled out of the mouth or nose. Still assuming that the rabbit would have a similar internal structure to that of the rat, both would have very similar digestive systems. The rabbit would first have to ingest its food, which would be done by bringing the food into its mouth, where mechanical digestion would take place when it begins to crush the food up with its teeth. The food would then be brought down through the esophagus and into the stomach, where it would then be further mechanically and chemically digested. Once done, it will then pass into the small intestine where the food is chemically digested and absorbed. Digestive glands such as the liver and pancreas also help break down food by secreting digestive liquids. Undigested material will then travel through the large intestine and out of the anus. Since the rat has a mouth and an anus, we can assume that both the rat and rabbit have a complete digestive system. The rat that I dissected was female, so this only relates to the female reproductive system of both the rat and rabbit. The rat that I dissected had an ovary where eggs are produced and stored. Female rats also have a uterus where embryos internally develop after fertilization. They also have a vagina, which is used as a birth canal and for mating. So after comparing the rat's internal structure to that of the rabbit's, we will then be moving on to comparing the internal structures of the earthworm, crayfish, squid, and perch, starting off with their digestive systems. All of these animals have a complete digestive system because they all have an entryway, which are their mouths, and an exitway, which are their anuses. All these animals differ in how they mechanically digest their food, because the earthworm uses its gizzard, the crayfish uses its cardiac stomach and gastric teeth, which are located in the gastric mill. The squid uses its beak, radula, and stomach, and the perch mainly uses its stomach. Chemical digestion and absorption is also different because the earthworm uses its gizzard and small intestine, and the crayfish uses its pyloric stomach and small intestine. The squid uses its cecum and small intestine, and the perch uses its stomach and small intestine. So they all similarly use their small intestine for chemical digestion and absorption, but also have different organs working as well. They all similarly have a large intestine, which takes undigested material and brings it to the anus where it is excreted. All of these animals have different circulatory systems, with the earthworm using aortic arches, dorsal and ventral blood vessels, the squid using one systemic heart and 2 branchial hearts, and both the crayfish and perch similarly using one singular heart in order to pump blood or hemosil throughout the body. The circulatory system of the earthworm, squid, and perch all share a closed system, while the crayfish has an open circulatory system. The respiratory systems of the squid, perch, and crayfish are similar because they all use their gills in order to breathe, while the earthworm breathes through its skin. The reproductive systems of each animal all correspond to the environment that they live in. An earthworm is hermaphroditic because it helps increase the low chances of finding a mate and reproducing due to it living in soil, which contrasts with the squid, crayfish, perch, and rat, which all have different sexes because they have a higher probability of finding a mate. The earthworm also has the ability to lay many cocoons, which increases its number of offspring. This is selected for due to the low survival rate of the offspring because many animals prey on earthworms for food. The squid and crayfish and perch also lay a lot of eggs. The crayfish lays a lot of eggs due to the vast amount of predators that live in or around its river habitat, which lowers the survival rate of its offspring. The perch lays a lot of eggs due to its river environment having less resources and also due to a lot of predators, which decrease the survival rate of its offspring. The squid, on the other hand, does produce a lot of offspring, but it lays its batch around once in its lifetime, which means that the energy needed for reproduction in a squid is really high compared to the animals that we just talked about. So the squid releases so many eggs because it doesn't have a lot of chances to do so, because of the many predators that live in the ocean that cause the offspring to have a low survival rate. The rat is different because it has internal embryonic development, which takes a lot of energy, so it can only birth up to 12 offspring, which is significantly less than the rest of the animals. But this is because rats relatively have a higher survival rate for its offspring compared to the other animals, due to them having more resources and land to survive off of. Rats are endothermic and perches are ectothermic. The sociology of the perch couldn't support the metabolic needs of the rat because rats need to be able to move around a lot in order to either escape predators or look for food. If the rat was like the perch, it was ectothermic, that would mean that it would have a slower metabolic rate due to its circulatory and respiratory system. The perch has a lower metabolic rate because it has a single circulation, which maintains a lower blood pressure and slower circulation of oxygen and nutrients. The perch also lives in water, which means that it attains less oxygen and it also diffuses slower in the respiratory system than that of air-breathing animals. This works for gills, but for rats, this would mean that it would not be able to get enough oxygen and nutrients to the body in time when it needs it. These factors would make it difficult for the rat to have enough energy to do its daily activities. Being ectothermic means that the animal's body temperature is regulated by its environment, and since the rat can be found to live in various different environments, many rats that live in colder climates would die out due to the respiratory and circulatory systems not providing the body with enough warmth or energy to maintain their body temperature.